The Galactic Council station hung in space like a giant metal flower. Its 7 arms reached out from the center, each one home to different alien species. The station orbited Nexus Prime, a blue and green world that belonged to no one. For over 1,000 years, this place had been the heart of peace in the galaxy. Ambassador Keelix of the Althari Collective stood before the great viewing window in the main council chamber. His tall, thin body was covered in silver scales that changed color with his mood. Today they showed calm blue patterns. The council meeting had gone well. Trade agreements were signed. Border disputes were solved with words instead of weapons. This was how civilized beings handled problems. "Another peaceful day," said Veltar, the council's arbiter. The crystal being's voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Veltar had no real body, just a collection of floating crystal shards that glowed with soft light. The galaxy remained stable. Keelix nodded. As it should be. Violence is the way of primitive species. We have evolved beyond such things. In the distance, other ships moved slowly around the station. The insect-like Zephyrians brought their hive ships, perfectly clean and organized. The aquatic depths came in vessels filled with water, their bubble helmets gleaming. The energy beings called Luminari traveled in ships that glowed like small suns. All followed the ancient rules. All arrived with clean hulls and proper ceremonies. The council chamber itself was a marvel. 17 different environments were built into the circular room. Each species could sit in comfort while talking to others. The depths had their water pools. The Zephyrians had their temperature-controlled sections. The crystal beings had their light-focusing areas. Peace and order ruled everything. "Ship detected coming out of hyperspace," announced the station's computer in a calm voice. 12 vessels. Unknown configuration. Keelix looked up. Unknown ships were not common. All species in the galaxy were known to the Council. All had to ask permission before coming to Nexus Prime. The rules were very clear about this. "Display on main screen," Veltar commanded. The huge screen at the center of the chamber flickered to life. What they saw made several delegates gasp in shock. 12 ships hung in space, but these were unlike anything the Council had seen before. They were built like weapons, all sharp angles and heavy armor. But that was not the worst part. The ships were covered in deep red stains. The crimson color was wet and fresh, gleaming under the light of Nexus Prime's twin suns. It looked like blood. It dripped from the hull plates and left floating drops in space behind them. "By the ancient law," whispered Keelix, his scales turning dark purple with fear and disgust. "They come to us with blood on their ships." The Zephyrian delegate, a creature that looked like a giant mantis, clicked its mouthparts in alarm. "This violates all protocols. Blood-stained ships are forbidden in civilized space." "Who are they?" asked the representative from the depths, her voice bubbling through her water helmet. "What species would do such a thing?" Before anyone could answer, a message came through the communication system. The voice was clear and strong, speaking in basic galactic common tongue. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Federation vessel Defiant. We request immediate permission to dock with Galactic Council Station. We come with urgent information for the Council." "Earth Federation." Veltar's crystals spun faster, showing confusion. "We have no record of this species." "Or their world called Earth," added Keelix. His scales were now showing angry red patterns. "They arrive unannounced with bloody ships and demand to dock with us." "This is madness." The Admiral's voice came again. "We understand our arrival is unexpected. We will explain everything once we dock. The galaxy is in danger. Time is running out." Several delegates began talking at once. The Zephyrians demanded the bloody ships be turned away immediately. The crystal beings worried about contamination. The energy-based Luminari feared some new kind of weapon. "Look at their ships more closely," said the progenitor delegate, an ancient being whose species was old when the galaxy was young. Her voice was dry like autumn leaves. "Those are battle scars. They have been fighting." On the screen, the human ships moved closer. The damage was now clear to see. Blast marks covered the hulls. Some sections were completely torn away. Emergency patches held atmosphere inside damaged areas. These ships had been in a terrible fight. "Fighting whom?" demanded Keelix. "And why do they come here covered in blood? Are they conquerors? Killers?" "Council security teams to stations," Veltar commanded. "Prepare defensive measures, but do not fire unless threatened." The human admiral spoke again. "We have wounded on board. We request medical assistance and emergency docking. We have traveled far to reach you. Dr. Nix, the medical officer from the Healing Guild, stepped forward. The small, round being had devoted his life to helping others. If they have wounded, we must help them. It is our duty. Our duty is to protect the council, Calyx shot back. These creatures could be dangerous. They could be diseased. They could be lying. The debate grew louder. Some delegates wanted to help. Others demanded the ships be turned away. The blood on the human vessels disturbed everyone. In galactic culture, clean ships showed respect and peaceful intentions. Bloody hulls meant only one thing: violence and death. Admiral Chen, Veltar's voice cut through the noise. You will answer one question before we decide. Whose blood stains your ships? There was a long pause. When the Admiral finally answered, her voice was heavy with sadness. The blood belongs to those who died protecting others. We will explain everything once we dock, please. Lives depend on what we have to tell you. The council chamber fell silent. The humans were asking for help, but they would not explain the blood. This made the situation more dangerous. What if they had killed innocents? What if they were fleeing justice? What if they brought war to the peaceful station? We should vote, said Veltar finally. All in favor of allowing these humans to dock? Only 3 delegates raised their hands. Dr. Nix voted to help the wounded. The progenitor voted out of curiosity about these new beings. One of the younger Luminari voted because she sensed no evil intent from the humans. All opposed? 11 hands went up. The majority wanted the humans to leave. The vote is clear, Veltar announced. Human ships, you are denied docking permission. Please leave council space immediately. But Admiral Chen's voice came back strong and determined. With respect, Arbiter, we cannot leave. What we have to tell you affects every species in this galaxy. If you turn us away, billions will die. We are docking whether you give permission or not. The human ships began moving toward the station. Council security vessels moved to intercept them. But they were small patrol craft meant for keeping peace, not fighting. The human ships looked like they were built for war. They're coming whether we want them or not, Calyx said, his scales now showing bright fear patterns. Barbarians. Blood-drunk savages. Veltar's crystals spun in tight circles as he thought. Finally, he made his decision. Let them dock. But they will be under heavy guard. The moment they show any threat, we will stop them. The bloody human ships moved slowly toward the docking arms of the station. Behind them, drops of red floated in space like fallen stars. Whatever these humans had done, whatever they had fought, they were bringing their story to the council. The day of peace was about to end. The docking bay filled with the sound of metal connecting to metal. The human ship Defiant locked onto the station's docking arm with a loud clang that echoed through the corridors. Council security forces took positions around the bay, their weapons ready but not aimed. They had never seen anything like what was coming through the airlock. Admiral Sarah Chen stepped onto the station first. She was tall for her species, with dark skin and gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was clean, but showed signs of recent repairs. Behind her came 2 other humans. One was an older man with kind eyes who carried what looked like scientific equipment. The other was a woman with the bearing of a soldier, her hand resting on the weapon at her side. The aliens stared at the humans with a mixture of curiosity and fear. These creatures looked strange to their eyes. They had soft skin instead of scales or shells. They walked on 2 legs like some species, but their movements were different. More purposeful, more ready for danger. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, the leader said in clear galactic common. This is Dr. Marcus Webb, our science officer, and Colonel Elena Vasquez, military attaché. Calyx stepped forward, his scales showing authority patterns of gold and silver. I am Ambassador Calyx of the Althari Collective. You are under arrest for violating council space and arriving with blood-stained vessels. We understand your concerns, Admiral Chen replied calmly, but we need to speak to the full council immediately. What we have to say cannot wait. What you have to say can wait until you explain the blood on your ships, Calyx shot back. Are you killers, pirates? What species did you slaughter? Dr. Webb started to speak, but Admiral Chen held up her hand to stop him. The other humans fell silent immediately. This show of discipline impressed some of the watching aliens. Most species had long debates before making decisions. These humans followed their leader without question. We will explain everything to the council, Admiral Chen said. Not before. The security team escorted the humans through the station's corridors. Aliens pressed against the windows to see these new beings. The humans walked with military precision, their eyes constantly watching for threats. This made the peaceful station feel suddenly dangerous. The council chamber had been prepared quickly. Extra security stations were set up. Medical scanners checked the humans for diseases or weapons. The results showed they were biological creatures like many others in the galaxy, but with some unusual characteristics. Their bodies seemed built for endurance and stress. Their brains showed patterns that suggested they could make quick decisions under pressure. Veltar floated at the center of the chamber, his crystals glowing with official authority. Humans of Earth Federation, you stand before the Galactic Council accused of violating our space and our laws. How do you answer? Admiral Chen stood straight and looked directly at each delegate in turn. We come seeking membership in your council and to warn you of a threat that endangers every species in the galaxy. Membership? Calyx laughed, a sound like tinkling glass. You arrive with blood on your ships and demand membership? You know nothing of our ways. We know more than you think, Dr. Webb said quietly. We have studied your cultures for months. We understand your values of peace and cooperation. We share those values. Yet you come to us covered in blood, said the Zephyrian delegate, her insect features showing disgust. Blood is the sign of the primitive mind. The civilized being does not spill blood. Colonel Vasquez stepped forward slightly. Sometimes civilized beings must be protected by those willing to spill blood. This statement caused an uproar in the chamber. Several delegates began shouting. The depths representative splashed in her pool. The energy beings flickered with alarm. The concept that violence could protect peace was alien to most of them. Silence, Veltar commanded. His voice echoed through the chamber. Humans, you will explain the blood on your ships or you will be expelled from this station immediately. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. She looked at each of her companions and they nodded slightly. Some decision was made between them. The blood on our ships is not the blood of our enemies, she said finally. It is the blood of our own people. Our defenders, our heroes. The chamber fell completely silent. This was not what anyone had expected. Your own people? Asked the ancient progenitor. You killed your own kind? No, Admiral Chen said, her voice heavy with sadness. They died protecting others. They died holding the line against something terrible that is coming for all of us. Dr. Webb activated a device he carried. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed star charts and battle reports. 3 months ago, we detected an ancient threat awakening in the outer rim of the galaxy. Something that has been sleeping for millions of years. What kind of threat? Demanded Calyx. We call them the Devourers, Dr. Webb explained. They are not like any life form in our databases. They consume not just matter, but consciousness itself. They eat minds, leaving empty shells behind. The delegates exchanged worried glances. The energy beings who existed as pure thought flickered with fear. The crystal being's light grew dimmer. The concept of something that could eat consciousness terrified them all. You lie, said Calyx. There are no such creatures. Our scientists would have detected them. Colonel Vasquez spoke up. Your scientists do not look for military threats because you have forgotten they exist. We found them because we still remember how to fight. Admiral Chen activated another part of the display. It showed images of destroyed planets and empty space stations. The Devourers attacked our outer colonies first. We could have run. We could have abandoned those worlds and fled to safety. Instead, we chose to fight. Why? Asked the Depths representative. Why not seek help? Why not negotiate? Because there is no negotiating with the Devourers, Admiral Chen replied. They do not want territory or resources. They want to feed, and they are very hungry after sleeping for so long. The images showed human ships fighting against things that looked like living darkness. The battles were terrible and brutal. Human vessels rammed the enemy ships, exploding in balls of fire. Others fought at close range, their crews dying to protect evacuation ships. The blood on our ships belongs to people who died buying time, Admiral Chen continued. Time for civilians to escape. Time for warning messages to be sent. Time for us to learn how to fight these things. And did you learn? Asked Veltar. We learned that conventional weapons barely hurt them. We learned that they fear only one thing: beings willing to sacrifice themselves for others. We learned that sometimes the only way to protect peace is to fight for it. Dr. Webb brought up new data. Our calculations show the Devourer fleet will reach the outer council worlds in 3 weeks. They are following the path of least resistance, which leads directly here. 3 weeks? The Zephyrian delegate's voice rose in panic. Why did you not warn us sooner? We tried, Colonel Vasquez said grimly. We sent messages ahead of us. Your communication networks ignored them because they came from an unknown species. Your automated systems deleted them as spam. The chamber erupted in arguments again. Some delegates demanded proof. Others called for immediate evacuation. A few suggested surrender and negotiation. None of them seemed to understand that the humans had been protecting them all along. Admiral Chen waited for the noise to die down. When she spoke again, her voice cut through the confusion like a blade. We did not come here to ask for gratitude. We came to offer help. The Devourers are coming whether you believe in them or not. You can choose to fight with us or you can face them alone. And if we refuse your help? Asked Helix. Admiral Chen looked him directly in the eyes. Then we will fight anyway. Because that is what humans do. We stand between the darkness and those who cannot stand for themselves. The chamber fell silent again. The blood on the human ship suddenly meant something different. It was not the mark of savages or killers. It was the price of protection. The cost of standing guard while others slept safely. But not all the delegates were convinced. Some still saw only violence and death. The question remained, would the Council accept humanity's help, or would they face the coming darkness alone? The Council chamber buzzed with heated arguments. Delegates spoke in their native languages, creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonic tones. The humans stood quietly in the center, waiting for the chaos to settle. Admiral Chen's revelation about the Devourers had shaken the foundation of everything the Council believed about their safe, peaceful galaxy. Calyx paced in front of his delegation, his scales shifting through angry patterns of red and orange. This is exactly what I feared, he announced to the chamber. These humans bring stories of war and death. They want to drag us into their violent ways. The evidence is clear, Dr. Webb said, gesturing to his holographic displays. These energy readings from the outer rim show massive disruptions. Entire solar systems have gone dark. Something is consuming them. The Zephyrian delegate, called Queen Voice Zix, spoke for her hive mind. Our people do not understand individual sacrifice. When one dies, all suffer. How can beings choose death willingly? Colonel Vasquez stepped forward. Because sometimes one person dying means 100 others live. Sometimes 100 dying means 1,000,000 live. We choose the greater good. The greater good? Scoffed Calyx. Who decides what is good? Who has the right to choose who lives and dies? Admiral Chen's voice was steady but firm. The person holding the weapon decides. The person standing between the enemy and the innocent decides. The person willing to pay the price decides. The ancient progenitor delegate had been silent until now. Her voice, old as starlight, cut through the arguments. I have lived for 10,000 years. I have seen the rise and fall of civilizations. These humans speak truth. There are things in the galaxy that cannot be reasoned with. What do you know of these Devourers? Veltar asked, his crystals focusing on the ancient being. We called them the Hunger in the old days, the progenitor replied. They came from beyond the galaxy's edge following the scent of conscious thought. My people fought them once long ago. Most of us died before they returned to their sleep. A chill settled over the chamber. If the progenitors, the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy, confirmed the threat, then it was real. Dr. Webb activated new displays showing tactical analyses. The Devourers move in waves. They send scout ships first to test defenses. Then they bring their main force. Our data shows they have already sent scouts toward Council space. How long before the scouts arrive? Asked the Depths representative, bubbles of fear rising in her tank. Based on their current speed, 6 days, Dr. Webb replied. Maybe less, the chamber fell silent. 6 days was not enough time to evacuate entire worlds. It was barely enough time to prepare any kind of defense. What do you propose? Veltar asked the humans. Admiral Chen activated her own display, showing battle formations and defensive positions. We share our tactical knowledge. We help you prepare your defenses. We coordinate a joint response, and in return, Calyx demanded suspiciously. Nothing, Admiral Chen said simply. We fight whether you help us or not. But together, we might actually win. The Luminary delegate, a being of pure energy, pulsed with confusion. Your species gains nothing from helping us. Why do you offer? Colonel Vasquez smiled grimly. Because it's the right thing to do. Because someone has to stand guard. Because we're good at it. Good at killing, you mean? Calyx accused. Good at protecting, Admiral Chen corrected. There is a difference. The debate continued for hours. The peaceful species struggled to understand the concept of protective violence. They had lived so long without threats that they had forgotten how to face them. The humans remained patient, answering questions and explaining tactics. Dr. Nix, the medical officer, had been studying the human biological data. "Your species shows remarkable adaptation to stress," he observed. "Your bodies produce chemicals that improve performance under pressure. Most species become less effective when frightened. Fear keeps us alive," Dr. Webb explained. "It makes us faster, stronger, more alert. We don't freeze when threatened. We act. This explains much about your behavior," the progenitor said thoughtfully. "You evolved as prey animals who became predators. You understand both sides of the hunt." The Zephyrian queen voice clicked her mandibles nervously. "If these devourers are as dangerous as you claim, how did your small force defeat them?" "We didn't defeat them," Admiral Chen said quietly. "We delayed them. We made them pay a price for every ship, every world, every life. We taught them that humans don't die quietly." She activated new images showing the final battle at humanity's outer colonies. Human ships performed ramming attacks against massive devourer vessels. Crews detonated their own ships rather than let them be captured. Soldiers fought hand-to-hand in boarding actions, buying time for civilian evacuation ships. 30,000 humans died in those battles. Admiral Chen continued. "But they saved 3 million civilians. The devourers learned that attacking humans comes with a cost. And now they come for us," whispered the Depth's representative. "Now they come for everyone," Dr. Webb confirmed. "Our analysis shows they're following the path of highest population density. They want to feed on as many minds as possible." Veltar's crystals spun slowly as he considered the options. "What exactly do you propose we do?" Admiral Chen gestured to her tactical displays. "First, we establish a defensive line at the outer council worlds. My ships will take point positions. Your ships provide support and evacuation capabilities." "You want us to put our people in harm's way," Calyx protested. "I want your people to help save themselves," Admiral Chen replied. "The devourers will reach your worlds whether you fight or not. The only question is whether you meet them prepared or helpless." Colonel Vasquez added, "We can teach your security forces basic combat techniques, show them how to fight boarding actions, how to coordinate fleet movements." "Our people are not warriors," Queen Voice Zik stated. "They don't need to be warriors," Colonel Vasquez said. "They just need to be brave enough to protect what they love." The ancient progenitor spoke again. "The humans offer us something we have forgotten how to do. They offer to fight for us. The question is whether we will let them, and whether we will fight alongside them," added Dr. Nix quietly. The debate shifted. Some delegates began to see the logic in the human proposal. Others remained adamant that violence was never the answer. The Luminari delegation was split. Some feared the threat to consciousness itself. Others believed they could reason with any intelligent beings. "What if we try to communicate with these devourers first?" suggested one of the younger delegates. "Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution." Dr. Webb's expression darkened. "We tried that. They don't communicate in any way we understand. They just consume. The only message they seem to understand is resistance." Admiral Chen looked around the chamber at all the different species. "You have built something beautiful here. A place where different kinds of beings can work together in peace. The devourers want to destroy that. They want to eat your thoughts, your dreams, your very selves. So you ask us to become like you," Calyx said bitterly. "To become killers?" "No," Admiral Chen said firmly. "I ask you to remain who you are. Let us be the killers. Let us carry that burden. You just need to be willing to let us protect you." The chamber fell quiet again. The choice was clear but difficult. Accept humanity's help and compromise their peaceful principles, or face the devourers alone and likely die. Veltar finally spoke. "We will vote. All in favor of accepting human assistance?" Hands and appendages began to rise around the chamber. Not all of them, but more than before. The threat was real, and even the most peaceful species could see that sometimes survival required difficult choices. All opposed? Fewer hands rose this time, but some delegates still could not accept the need for violence. "The vote is 8 in favor, 7 opposed, 2 abstaining," Veltar announced. "The motion passes by a narrow margin." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. "Then we begin preparations immediately. The scouts will be here soon and the main force will follow. We have work to do." As the delegates began to disperse, the humans remained in the chamber. They knew that the real test was still coming. The council had agreed to let them help. But would the peaceful species be able to fight when the time came? Would they stand firm when the devourers arrived? Or would centuries of peace make them unable to defend themselves? The blood on the human ships had told one story. Soon they would all write a new one together. 3 days had passed since the Council's narrow vote to accept human help. The peaceful station had transformed into something resembling a military command center. Human officers worked alongside alien delegates, their computers displaying tactical information that most of the peaceful species had never seen before. Admiral Chen stood in the main operations center, studying fleet positions on a massive holographic display. Around her, the different species struggled to understand concepts that humans took for granted. The art of war was foreign to beings who had known only peace. "I still do not understand these formation patterns," said Captain Thex of the Althari fleet. His scales showed confusion patterns of swirling yellow and green. "Why do our ships not spread out to avoid enemy fire?" Colonel Vasquez patiently explained for the third time. "Because scattered ships can be picked off one by one. Tight formations let you concentrate your fire and protect each other. But this increases the chance that multiple ships will be hit by the same attack," Captain Thex protested. "Yes, but it also increases the chance that your attack will actually hurt the enemy," Colonel Vasquez replied. "Better to lose 2 ships while destroying an enemy vessel than to lose 5 ships while the enemy escapes unharmed." The logic of acceptable losses was the hardest concept for the peaceful species to grasp. They had spent centuries avoiding any risk of death. The idea of trading lives for strategic advantage seemed monstrous to them. Dr. Webb worked with the station's scientists, sharing data about devourer technology and biology. The alien researchers were brilliant, but they approached problems differently than humans did. Where humans looked for weaknesses to exploit, the aliens looked for ways to understand and communicate. These energy readings suggest the devourers use some form of quantum consciousness manipulation, explained Dr. Silks, a luminary scientist whose light patterns showed excitement. "Perhaps we could develop a device to communicate with them on this level." "We tried that," Dr. Webb said gently. "The devourers don't want to talk. They want to feed. The only communication they understand is force. But surely all intelligent beings can be reasoned with," Dr. Silks insisted. "There must be some common ground." Dr. Webb pulled up footage from the battles at humanity's colonies. "Watch this carefully. See how the devourers move? They're not exploring or investigating. They're hunting. They've reduced consciousness to nothing more than food." The alien scientists watched in horror as the dark ship swept through human settlements, leaving nothing but empty shells behind. The recording showed no attempts at communication from the devourers, no hesitation, no mercy, just efficient consumption. Meanwhile, Veltar dealt with the political crisis that was splitting the council. Several delegations were having second thoughts about working with the humans. The Zephyrian collective was particularly troubled. "The hive mind cannot accept individual sacrifice," Queen Voice Zix explained to Veltar in a private meeting. "When we see humans willing to die alone, it creates disturbance in our thoughts. How can one bee choose to leave the hive forever?" "Perhaps," Veltar suggested carefully, "this is something your people need to learn. The humans did not choose death lightly. They chose it to protect life." "We understand protection of the hive," Queen Voice 6 replied. "But these humans speak of protecting strangers, beings they have never met, beings who are not even their own species. This makes no sense to us." Across the station, other species struggled with similar concepts. The aquatic depths could not understand fighting without water to retreat into. The crystal beings feared that violence would shatter their delicate harmony. The energy beings worried that aggressive thoughts would corrupt their pure essence. But some were learning. Dr. Nix had volunteered to work with the human medical teams, studying their treatment of combat injuries. What he learned changed his understanding of healing. "Your medical techniques are designed for trauma," he observed, watching human medics practice battlefield surgery. "Our medicine focuses on gentle restoration. Yours focuses on keeping people alive under terrible conditions." "Different needs," explained Dr. Sarah Kim, the human chief medical officer. "In battle, you don't have time for gentle healing. You patch them up fast and get them back in the fight." "This seems cruel," Dr. Nix said hesitantly. "It's practical," Dr. Kim replied. "A wounded soldier who can still fight might save 10 other soldiers. Sometimes being cruel to one person is the kindest thing you can do for everyone else. The concept of practical cruelty in service of greater Kindness was another difficult lesson for the peaceful species. On the fourth day, the first alerts came in. Long-range sensors detected movement at the edge of Council space. The Devourer scouts had arrived ahead of schedule. Admiral Chen called an emergency meeting of all ship captains and military coordinators. The main briefing room was packed with representatives from 12 different species. Most had never been in a military briefing before. "The scouts are here," Admiral Chen announced without preamble. "3 ships moving slowly through the outer system. They're testing our defenses and gathering intelligence. How do we respond?" asked Captain Thex, his scales showing nervous orange patterns. "We let them look," Admiral Chen said, surprising everyone. "But we watch them too. We need to see how they operate in this system. Should we not drive them away?" asked the Depths Commander, Captain Reefsinger. "Not yet," Colonel Vasquez explained. "If we attack the scouts, they'll report back to the main force. Better to let them think we're unprepared." "But we are unprepared," pointed out the luminary Captain Bright Thought. "Most of our crews have never been in battle." "That's why we're going to change that," Admiral Chen said grimly. "Starting now, all ships will begin combat drills immediately. Human instructors will guide your crews through basic fighting techniques." The next 2 days were chaos. Alien crews struggled to learn human battle tactics. The Zephyrians moved too slowly, taking time to consult the hive mind before each decision. The Depths crews panicked when their water systems were damaged in simulated attacks. The crystal beings had trouble coordinating because violence disrupted their harmony, but gradually they began to learn. Captain Thex discovered that his people's natural caution made them excellent at defensive positions. Captain Reefsinger found that her crew's ability to work in 3 dimensions gave them advantages in space combat. The Luminary learned to use their energy manipulation to boost weapon systems. The humans worked tirelessly to prepare their new allies. Admiral Chen barely slept, moving from ship to ship to assess readiness. Dr. Webb calculated and recalculated defensive positions. Colonel Vasquez trained alien security teams in hand-to-hand combat. On the 7th day, the scouts departed. Long-range sensors tracked them leaving the system and heading back toward the galaxy's rim. The brief period of preparation was over. "How long before the main force arrives?" Feltar asked during the final planning meeting. "Based on the scout movement patterns, 4 days, Dr. Webb replied. "Maybe less if they're eager to feed." Admiral Chen looked around the room at the assembled alien commanders. "Are your people ready?" The question hung in the air. Ready was a relative term. The alien crews had learned basic tactics, but they had never faced real combat. They understood the theory of sacrifice, but had never been tested by it. They knew the Devourers were coming, but could not truly imagine what they would face. "We are as ready as we can be," Captain Thex said finally. "Then we take our positions," Admiral Chen decided. "Human ships will form the front line. Council vessels will provide support and evacuation capabilities. Remember, this is not about winning a glorious victory. This is about protecting innocent lives." As the mixed fleet moved into defensive positions around the outer Council worlds, a strange transformation had taken place. The peaceful species had not become warriors, but they had become something new. They had learned that sometimes peace must be defended with force. They had accepted that survival sometimes required sacrifice. The humans had given them more than military knowledge. They had given them the understanding that true strength comes from protecting others, even at great cost to yourself. Soon, that understanding would be tested in the fire of real battle. The Devourers were coming, and the galaxy's first truly united defense was about to begin. The Devourers arrived like a plague of darkness against the stars. 20 massive vessels dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Council system, their hulls seeming to absorb light itself. They moved with terrible purpose toward the inhabited worlds, leaving trails of void behind them. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching the enemy approach on her tactical display. Around her, human officers worked with quiet efficiency, their movements precise despite the terror they faced. This was what they had trained for. This was why they existed. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast on the joint communication channel. "Devourers confirmed, 20 heavy vessels, approaching on Vector 77 Mark IV. All units moved to defensive positions." Across the system, the mixed fleet responded. 12 human ships moved into the forward positions, their scarlet-stained hulls gleaming under the system's sun. Behind them, 37 council vessels took supporting positions. The peaceful species had never fielded such a large military force. On the bridge of the Althari vessel, Peaceful Current, Captain Thex watched his crew prepare for battle. His scales showed patterns he had never displayed before, colors of determination mixed with fear. His people had spent centuries avoiding conflict. Now they flew toward it willingly. "Weapon systems ready, Captain," reported his gunner, a young Althari whose scales flickered with nervous energy. "Remember your training," Captain Thex said, his voice steadier than he felt. "We protect the evacuation ships. We stand with our human allies." Similar scenes played out across the fleet. The Depth's crews in their water-filled ships practiced emergency procedures. The Zephyrian hive ships coordinated their movements with mechanical precision. The Crystal beings focused their harmony on shield generators and weapon arrays. The Devourers came on without any attempt at communication. Their dark ships moved like predators, spreading out to envelope the defending fleet. As they drew closer, the true horror of them became visible. The hulls seemed to ripple and pulse as if alive. Strange appendages reached out from their sides, grasping at empty space. "Energy readings are off the charts," Dr. Webb reported from his science station. "Those ships are using some kind of consciousness-based power source." "The mines they've consumed," Admiral Chen said grimly. "They're burning souls for fuel." The first exchange of fire came when the Devourers reached weapon range. Beams of dark energy lanced out from their ships, striking the forward human vessels. The human ships returned fire with everything they had: plasma cannons, missile salvos, particle beams. The battle was nothing like the clean, organized conflicts the Council species had imagined. It was chaos and terror and desperate courage all mixed together. Human ships dove at the enemy vessels, trading hit for hit at close range. The Devourers responded with boarding pods, sending creatures that fed on consciousness directly to the human ships. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Commander Torres from the human destroyer Vigilant. "Boarding parties detected, engaging with small arms." "Hold them off," Admiral Chen ordered. "Do not let them reach the evacuation ships." The human crews fought with savage determination. They had faced the Devourers before and knew what capture meant. Better to die fighting than become empty shells serving the enemy. But their sacrifice was buying time for something unprecedented. The Council species were learning to fight. Captain Reef Singer of the Depth's vessel Current Rider watched a human ship explode under Devourer fire. The sight filled her with rage she had never known her people could feel. "All weapons, target the ship that killed our allies," she ordered. Her crew responded with fury that surprised them all. Depth weapons designed for mining and construction tore into the Devourer hull. Other Council ships joined the attack, their own weapons adding to the barrage. But the most dramatic moment came when Queen Voice Zix made a decision that shocked her entire hive mind. A human ship was surrounded by 3 Devourer vessels, its shields failing and its hull breached. The logical thing was to retreat and preserve the hive. Instead, she ordered her ship forward. "For the protection of all consciousness," she broadcast, "we choose individual sacrifice." The Zephyrian ship rammed one of the Devourer vessels, its entire crew dying instantly. But the sacrifice created an opening for the surrounded human ship to escape. For the first time in their species' history, Zephyrians had chosen individual death for the greater good. The battle raged for hours. Human ships continued to lead the assault, their crews fighting with the desperate skill of those who knew they were protecting everything they loved. But now they were not alone. Council ships fought beside them, their crews learning courage from human example. Dr. Nix, the peaceful healer, found himself treating wounded soldiers in the medical bay of a human ship. The injuries were terrible, but he worked with steady hands, remembering what Dr. Kim had taught him about battlefield medicine. "Keep them alive," he told his medical team. "Patch them up and get them back to the fight." The words felt strange in his mouth, but he understood now why they were necessary. Sometimes being kind meant being harsh. The turning point came when the luminary energy beings made their own sacrifice. Captain Brightthought led his people in a coordinated attack that overloaded the Devourer's consciousness-draining systems. The energy beings literally gave their life force to disrupt the enemy's feeding mechanism, Our thoughts become weapons, Captain Brightthought transmitted as his ship's energy core merged with a devourer vessel. Our consciousness becomes protection for others. The explosion that followed took out 3 enemy ships and saved a fleeing civilian convoy. Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold with pride and sorrow mixed together. The Council species were learning to fight, but the cost was terrible. Ships from every species burned in the void. Crews that had never known violence died protecting strangers from other worlds. But they were winning. The Devourers, for the first time in eons, faced beings who would not be consumed quietly. Every ship they destroyed cost them dearly. Every mind they tried to drain fought back. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving surrender signals from the surviving Devourer vessels." Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, cease fire. The enemy is surrendering." The battle ended not with total destruction, but with something the galaxy had never seen before: Devourers retreating. 6 of their ships remained, damaged and drifting. They transmitted coordinates to their main fleet and a simple message: "This feeding ground is defended. Seek easier prey elsewhere." In the aftermath, rescue ships moved through the debris field. Human and alien crews worked together to save the wounded and recover the dead. The water of the system was stained with new blood, not just human blood, this time, but the life essence of every species that had fought. Captain Thex found Admiral Chen in the medical bay of the station, her arm in a sling from her own injuries. "Admiral," he said formally, his scales showing patterns of deep respect. "My people wish to thank you." "Thank us?" Admiral Chen looked around at the wounded from every species. "Look at the cost. Look at what we had to become." "We became protectors," Captain Thex said simply. "We learned that sometimes peace must be earned with sacrifice. You taught us that there are things worth fighting for." Dr. Nix approached with his medical report. Final casualties: 47 ships lost, 1,200 crew members dead, 3,000 wounded. All species contributed to the losses. The numbers were staggering for beings who had known only peace. But they were also something else. They were proof that the galaxy could unite against a common threat. Veltar's crystals chimed softly as he spoke to the assembled survivors. "The Council will vote again on human membership, but I think we all know the result." The vote was unanimous this time. Humanity was granted full membership, not as conquerors or warriors, but as guardians. Their ships would patrol the galaxy's edges, watching for threats that peaceful species could not face alone. As the mixed fleet limped home, their hulls stained with the blood of heroes from every species, a new understanding spread through the galaxy. Peace was precious precisely because it was fragile. Freedom required guardians. Sometimes the greatest love was shown not by those who created beauty, but by those willing to destroy evil. The humans had arrived with Scarlet-Stained ships, and now they departed with ships stained by the sacrifice of many species. But those stains were no longer marks of shame or fear. They were badges of honor, proof that when darkness came calling, the galaxy's children stood together. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge as the fleet entered hyperspace, heading home to report their victory. The blood on her ship's hull had dried to a deep brown, but new red stains mixed with blues and greens and golds, the life essence of beings who had learned to fight for others. "What now, Admiral?" asked her second-in-command. Admiral Chen looked out at the stars, thinking of the peaceful worlds they had saved and the prices that had been paid. "Now we watch the darkness," she said quietly, "so others can enjoy the light." The day humanity arrived at the Galactic Council with Scarlet-Stained ships had ended. The day the galaxy learned to defend itself had begun.